The Battle of Midway was a naval battle fought between June 4 and 7, 1942, during World War II. The battle was a decisive victory for the United States over the Imperial Japanese Navy. In early 1942, the situation in the Pacific was favorable to Japan. Japanese forces had conquered Indonesia, the Philippines, and New Guinea, and were threatening to invade Australia. The United States, on the other hand, was still in the process of rebuilding after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. The Japanese command, under the leadership of Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, devised a plan to attack Midway, a strategically important atoll located halfway between Hawaii and the Japanese islands. Yamamoto hoped to destroy the American Pacific Fleet and opened the way for an invasion of Hawaii. The battle began on June 4, 1942, when the Japanese fleet arrived at Midway. The Americans, who had intercepted Japanese radio messages, were prepared for the attack. On the first day of battle, the Japanese launched an air attack on Midway. The Americans managed to repel the attack, causing severe damage to the Japanese fleet. On the second day of battle, the Americans launched a counterattack against the Japanese carriers. In a single attack, the Americans sank 4 Japanese carriers, half of the Japanese fleet. On the third day of battle, the two fleets clashed in open water. The battle was brief and inconclusive, but the Americans continued to inflict damage on the Japanese fleet. The Battle of Midway was a decisive victory for the United States. The loss of 4 carriers was a devastating blow to the Imperial Japanese Navy, which was no longer able to launch large-scale attacks in the Pacific. The victory at Midway gave the United States control of the Central Pacific. The Americans were then able to launch a counteroffensive against the Japanese, which eventually led to their defeat in the war. The Battle of Midway is considered to be one of the most decisive battles of World War II. The American victory changed the course of the conflict in the Pacific and contributed to the defeat of Japan. The battle is also an example of how intelligence can be decisive in a war. The interception of Japanese radio messages allowed the Americans to prepare for the attack and inflict a decisive defeat on the enemy.